The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 159. Michigan softball's great season ends with a loss Sunday in the College World Series. And football's 2014 recruiting class holds the top spot this week in ESPN's poll. That and more on this week's show. This is the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. The numbers will be down this year, but the quality of those numbers has moved Michigan to the top of the recruiting list on ESPN.com. On today's Michigan Insider segment, our guest is going to be Michigan recruiting analyst Tim Sullivan from the Wolverine. We'll look at each of the 11 verbal commits in this class, and Tim will give us his thoughts on this already highly regarded class. Before we join Tim, let's get our Wolverine warmups in for this week. Michigan softball season came to an end Sunday afternoon with a loss to Washington in the College World Series. It was another great year for legendary head coach Carol Hutchins and her Wolverines. They survived the horrible tornado that hit Oklahoma City last Friday, played a 1 a.m. game on Sunday morning against Arizona State, which they won. Then on a few hours sleep, they came back for an early afternoon contest with Washington. One 4-run inning by the Huskies was enough to bring Michigan's season to an end. Congratulations, though, to this very young Michigan team on another great season, and the future looks very, very bright for next year. The Big Ten released the hockey schedule last week for the coming season. This year marks the inaugural season of Big Ten play, which will culminate in March with the first ever Big Ten hockey tournament in Minneapolis. We'll have more on both of those stories coming up later in the show on Wolverine Quick Hits. Brady Hoke's last two recruiting classes were stellar, and it appears the class of 2014 might be the best yet. It's early in the process, of course, but the Wolverines already have 11 verbal commitments and are ranked number 1 in this week's ESPN recruiting poll. Today on Michigan Game Day, we're going to be joined by Tim Sullivan, who is the recruiting editor from the Wolverine. That's next here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. With us today on Michigan Game Day, the recruiting editor from the Wolverine, Tim Sullivan. Tim, great to have you back on the show.
Yep, thanks for having me, Mike.
Well, this time of the year is sort of a lull. We're waiting for the season to get started in a couple of months, but what has been a constant the last few years, maybe the last 5 to 10 years, is the recruiting cycle, and it never ends and keeps guys like you very busy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does, especially the way this Michigan staff is recruiting. It seems like they're getting most of their commitments in the summer months, so it kind of fills up that void that you don't get spring football, you don't get the season. It's a perfect time to have a little something else going on.
Yeah, absolutely. We knew going into to this year, Tim, that the numbers were going to be, somewhat lower as far as commitments as compared to the last couple of years, and I don't think we know quite yet how it's going to shake down, if there's going to be any attrition, but we have 11 commits so far, 6 on the offensive side of the ball, 5 defense. How many more do you see in this class?
Well, early in the recruiting class, the Michigan coaches were telling recruits, hey, we're only taking 16 guys. The numbers are going to be very tight. They kind of backed off telling recruits that. It seems like they're expecting a little bit more expansion of that number. So probably you'll see somewhere between 17 to 20 guys in the class, which is still quite a few fewer than last year and the year before, which are 27 and 25 respectively. So down numbers, but it's not going to be, a tiny class.
I mentioned, or I saw Coach Brady Hoke over the weekend said that the numbers, he was just waiting to see how the attrition was. When he talks about attrition right now, are we talking about before this season starts or having a few more scholarships to give after the season when there's some attrition?
I think it'll most likely be after the season. At this point, we've already seen most of the preseason attrition that we're going to see with guys like Caleb Ringer, Kenny Wilkins leaving the program, even Mike Jones and Marvin Robinson, who left just a couple weeks ago. I think that's kind of the total of what the coaches are expecting before the season. You can always have a few surprises, but either way, for the 2014 classes, it doesn't matter if it happens tomorrow. It doesn't matter if it happens January 31st. That's, it's going to add the numbers in that way either way.
Well, let's take a look at this class of 11 commitments, 6 on the offense, 5 on the defensive side. And as I said, this time of the year, most rabid Wolverine fans have been keeping track of the commitments, but they might not know that much about some of these players. So, Tim, let's start with the young man who committed over the weekend. This was Chase Winovich. He's a 3-star kid out of Jefferson Hills, Pennsylvania, Thomas Jefferson High School, 6'3", 216, very coveted linebacker.
Yeah, Michigan beat out Ohio State in the hometown school Pitt. He's from the Pittsburgh area, so that's some pretty stiff competition. Ohio State is loading up on linebackers. They knew they were going to get Dante Booker, who committed a couple weeks ago. He's a 4-star guy. They think they're going to land Raekwon McMillan, who's a 5-star guy, and they still offered Winovich in the middle of the spring. So clearly he's a guy that they really, really liked. Michigan's coaches obviously really, really liked him, and they were able to beat out Ohio State and Pitt for him. He's a tall, kind of Jake Ryan-type linebacker who plays best going forward and making plays behind the line of scrimmage. Still pretty inexperienced in coverage. Even though he was a safety, he doesn't kind of have the knowledge to apply that coverage ability to the linebacker position yet. But he's learning, and he's a kid who really likes to learn. So he'll improve over the course of the process, and he's a 3-star recruit now. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being a 4-star by the time he gets a little bit more experience at the linebacker position this fall.
Is he playing inside or outside right now in high school?
In high school, he's playing mostly middle linebacker. I think most high school coaches put their best players either at middle linebacker or free safety. You want your best player in the middle of the field and force the offense to kind of punish you wide or make it so that they're not getting the easy yards at the very least.
Yeah, and this was a big get because didn't this kid grow up an Ohio State fan?
Yeah, he grew up an Ohio State fan, also a Pitt fan. The one advantage that Michigan had is his older brother, Peter, played quarterback and fullback during his career at Bowling Green. Now lives in Toledo, so it's just, a quick 45-minute jaunt away from Ann Arbor. So that's kind of been a bit of an advantage for Michigan in the process because he can go visit his brother and pop up to Michigan, or if he ends up at Michigan, which he has now, when he's in college, he can head down and visit his brother anytime. So there was kind of an advantage built in there, and each school had a little bit of an advantage in a different way, and it seems like Michigan's coaching staff was able to capitalize on the advantages that they did have. Next
on our defensive list is the jewel of this class. I find it hard to believe that we'll top this. Could, though. Jabril Peppers, who is a 5-star defensive back. We've all been hearing a lot about him, seen a lot of video of him online. He's from Paramus, New Jersey, Paramus Catholic. 6'1", 210. He's got it all.
Yeah, this is a kid. Everybody kind of prefaces this with, I hesitate to compare anybody to Charles Woodson, but this might be the high school prospect that's the closest thing that we've seen in a long time. Exceptional athlete, obviously 6'1", 210 as a high school junior. It's huge for a cornerback, but he still has the skills and athleticism to get it done. He's also the starting running back for his high school team. He plays the Wildcat for his high school team. He plays wide receiver for his high school team. He just about does it all. So he's an exceptional athlete, and he can give you a little bit of everything depending on where coaches want to use him. Michigan's coaches obviously want to use him first and foremost on defense, but there's no way they don't give this guy a chance to return a punt or a kick or even play a little bit of offense at some point in his career.
I know. You do have to sort of compare him to Charles Woodson when you see what he does. When you look at this kid, his high school coach there at Paramus Catholic said if he wanted to be a running back, he would be a 5-star running back and as good as he is a defensive player.
Yeah, that's true. On Rivals.com, I think just last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, we had a feature about 5-star running backs, and Jabril Peppers isn't going to play running back in college, but he was in that piece just because he would be a 5-star if he was a running back. He has so much skill on that side of the ball. elusive with the ball in his hands. Obviously, he's an explosive athlete. This is a kid who can just kind of do it all, and obviously, off the field, he's got a burgeoning rap career. He's a great student. He kind of is a complete package in terms of, a 17-year-old high school kid.
Yeah, it looks like you can add recruiting specialist to that list because he's out there trying to bring in some more talent, especially the number 2 ranked cornerback. I'm not sure if his name is Adore?
Adore, yeah.
Okay, Adore. He's trying to convince him to come to U of M, and of course the number 1 player in the land right now, Hand. So he's trying his hand at recruiting, like a lot of these young guys seem to be doing these days.
Yeah, and that's something that I think Michigan's commits in the 2012 class kind of got started, and then in the 2013 class, Shane Morris really kind of kicked it into another gear. And for 2014, Michael Ferns, the linebacker commit, started the trend. He took it to the next level. He started making T-shirts and all sorts of things. And I think Michigan's classes have been at the forefront of this kind of recruits as recruiters for their school sort of thing. And Jabril Peppers jumped in with both feet as soon as he committed to the Wolverine.
Well, next is a defensive tackle I'd like to talk about, Tim. Not sure how you pronounce his name. Brian, is it Moan or Monet?
It's Monet.
Monet, okay. So he's a 4-star kid out of Salt Lake City, Utah, Highland High School, 6'4", 315 pounds. He's exactly the kind of defensive lineman that Coach Greg Madison wants, isn't he?
Yeah, they offered Brian Monet. They were the first ones to offer him when he was just a sophomore. He was, I think, a 6'3", 215-pound defensive end. And they offered him, and Coach Brody Benson out there at Highland High School told me, they know this kid's going to grow into a defensive tackle. That's why they offered him. Obviously, he has, I think now he's even tipping the scales over 340 pounds, which is getting on the higher end of where he wants to be. He's trying to cut a little bit of weight, get back in shape. They have spring football out there, so that'll help him cut a few pounds by the time the season comes around this fall. He's just a big space eater in the middle, but he's pretty he's able to penetrate as well. So he can kind of give you that disruptive force in the middle, or he can plug it up. So that's exactly what Brady Hoke and Greg Madison want. Obviously, Brady Hoke coaches the nose tackles, and he's going to be pretty happy to get a guy like Monet.
Who else was in on recruiting him?
Michigan was by far the first, so not that many other schools got in. I know Utah State, Colorado, I believe Colorado State, and some Pac-12 schools with a bit bigger national profiles had started getting involved. I know Washington was in there. I think both Arizona schools might have been in there, and SEC schools had started poking around. I don't think he was offered by any of them by the time he committed to Michigan. And when he committed and made it clear that he wasn't going to end up anywhere else, other schools kind of slowed down on him. So I think that's where you would have seen a guy get more offers, but he just shut down the recruiting process so early.
Is he one of these kids that's going to be a 5-star just because he's committed to Michigan?
I actually like him a lot more than his ranking says right now. It's just that our Rivals team of experts hasn't had a chance to see him. There aren't a whole lot of summer camps in Utah. There's not a whole lot of exposure for high school football in Utah unless you're kind of seeking it out. So he should move up the rankings by the time the national analysts get a chance to see him play, I think.
Well, our next commit is a local kid, defensive end Lawrence Marshall. He's got a 3-star rating right now, I believe, in Rivals. And he is out of Southfield High School, 6'4", 205 pounds. And for a very brief period of time, was an Ohio State commit. Yeah,
he committed to Ohio State at a basketball game in February, and I think it was 2 days later, maybe it was 3, he said, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have done that, and he immediately decommitted from Ohio State. He kind of felt pressured by some people in his circle to get a commitment out of the way, and he felt that wasn't the right fit for him. He took a step back, looked really hard at Michigan State, also looked at Michigan, and eventually Michigan kind of beat out Michigan State, who was the only other serious contender the second time around. He didn't really consider Ohio State, realized that was a bit of a mistake for him. It seemed for a while like he was going to Michigan State, but he says he wasn't sandbagging, but it kind of looks that way because Michigan State was the school that he talked about the most. But obviously Michigan, with Greg Madison and Brady Hoke again, was able to impress him enough to reel in the commitment.
Well, Tim, being that he's a local kid from Southfield, have you had much of a chance to see him play?
Oh, yeah, I live about 3 minutes away from Southfield High School. I've seen him play as much as anybody out there. So he's a pretty explosive guy off the line, but the question about that is he doesn't consistently use that explosiveness. He needs to learn to have that high motor. He's pretty raw with technique. He played JV football as a sophomore, so he's only played 1 year of varsity football so far. He can be a dominant player on the edge, but he just needs to develop that consistency. He's building weight. I think he told me recently that he's up to 235 pounds, which will really help him as long as he can, again, use that weight to penetrate into the defensive back or offensive backfield instead of using it as an excuse to not go hard every single play.
Next on the list, and our last, so far, our fifth defensive commitment, he was the first in this class, I believe, Michael Ferns, who's a four-star kid, a linebacker out of St. Clairsville, Ohio, St. Clairsville High School, right in the heart of Buckeye land there. But from what you read and hear from him, he was really never big on Ohio State, was he?
No, his family comes primarily from West Virginia. They're right there in the Wheeling, West Virginia area. He grew up a big West Virginia fan, but by the time he became a football recruit, he knew that wasn't going to be the type of stage that he wanted. Obviously, his national profile as a high four-star guy isn't exactly what West Virginia has been going for on the defensive side of the ball. At least the results wouldn't say that on the field the past couple of years. He wanted a school that had a chance to win national championships, and he wanted to help reel in the talent to win national championships, and he's picked Michigan, and he's done as much as he can. He helped with recruiting Jabril Peppers. He's helped with recruiting pretty much every kid in the class so far, and you can't argue with the results at this point.
No, and he looks, at least on paper, I don't know if his weight's pumped up a lot, but he's listed at 6'3", 233 pounds for a kid that's going to be a senior in high school. That is a big inside linebacker right now.
Yeah, he told me, and his dad has told me that he actually fluctuates between like 230 and 240 pounds. His uncle owns a gym, so he kind of has a chance to work out as much as any high school football player can, and he gets the good training that you would want to do to build mass the right way and all that sort of stuff. He's a huge kid in the middle for, especially just coming out of his junior year. He's a big physical guy in the middle, like you'd expect from a kid that size. He also plays tight end for his team, and some schools recruited him as a tight end, including Alabama, which offered him long after he committed to Michigan. So he has the athleticism, the straight line athleticism to be a pass catcher too. He can kind of do it all. He needs to work on his lateral mobility, especially in pass coverage, but that's something that as hard as he works, you have every bit of confidence that he'll be able to do that.
Another nice linebacker pickup for Coach Brady Hoke and Greg Madison, and that's just a quick look at our 5 defensive commits so far this year. Our guest on the show today, as we talk 2014 recruiting, is the recruiting editor from the Wolverine, Tim Sullivan. Tim, 6 offensive commits so far. Let's start with another tight end, as we seem to be stockpiling some big, strong, pro-style tight ends. Ian Bunting, who's a 3-star kid. He's out of Hinsdale, Illinois, Hinsdale Central High School, 6'7", 215 pounds. This is just, the kind of tight end that Brady really likes, isn't it?
Brady would probably like him to have a little more experience blocking, like most great high school prospects who are going to play tight end in college. He's mostly a wide receiver. I talked to his coach down at Hinsdale Central, and he said, we're going to play him at tight end quite a bit more this year. He was hurt last year, so he was kind of limited in what he could do, and he stayed out on the edge as a wide receiver most of the year. And like you'd expect for a kid that's playing wide receiver, he's a very, very talented pass catcher. Much more athletic than a lot of kids his height. You don't see a lot of 6'7" kids who can run as fast as he can. Great hands, great leaping ability. Obviously, he doesn't need to use it a whole lot because he's so big. And the blocking is, at this point, the main question mark. He's only 215 pounds. He has a nice broad frame. By the time he plays in college, he'll probably be at least 240, 250 pounds, and that will help him in the blocking department as well. And he just needs to learn the techniques to do that. And once he gets the size, it should be something that he easily is able to pick up.
I've seen quite a bit of film on him, and I feel sorry for high school cornerbacks when you see this guy go wide. And you look at him in front of you, 6'7", 215, think, oh my God, he's got wheels. He's got the hands, so really all he needs to do is concentrate, as you said, on the blocking skills. That will come, and getting weight on. But when you look at the talent, it's there.
Yeah, he plays 7-on-7 with the Core 6 team, which is a talented 7-on-7 team out of the Chicago area, and he just dominates from a receiving standpoint. The only thing that you really need to see him work on is playing physically, especially in the blocking game, and learning some of the things that tight ends do differently in their routes, beating linebackers over the top and stuff instead of just running a one-on-one man route against the corner on the edge. But he has the ability to learn very quickly. He's a bright kid, and he should be able to, add all those skills to his tool set.
Well, plenty of time to do that, too. Another offensive pickup that is very impressive from Paramus in New Jersey, Paramus Catholic. So, of course, he is a teammate of Jabril Peppers, Jawan Bushell Beatty. Right now, a 3-star rating, but another big kid, 6'5", 295. Is he more of a project kind of an offensive lineman, though?
Yeah, there are actually a few kids in Michigan's class that fit this description. He's been a basketball player most of his life. He's only been playing football for a couple of years, so he doesn't have the overall experience that you would like to see from a kid to expect him to be the polished player that you're going to get. This isn't going to be Kyle Bosch, who looked like he could have started from day one when he walked onto a college campus. Bushell Beatty is going to have to learn the techniques. He has the physical abilities. He's pretty quick feet, very, very physical up front. Needs to add some body strength, but he can do that. He has the frame to add muscle without losing his athleticism. Just needs the experience, learning the techniques, learning the schemes, all the sorts of things that, the reasons that they say offensive line is one of the most difficult positions to play in college, the NFL, or even high school.
Well, another offensive lineman we picked up is Mason Cole. He's a 4-star player. He's out of Tarpon Springs, Florida, Eastlake High School. 6'5", 275. Seen quite a bit of tape on him, and he looks like a pretty polished blocker at this stage.
Yeah, he's kind of the opposite of Bushell Beatty from that department. He is as polished as you're going to see most high school offensive linemen. The Kyle Kalis types are rare that are ready to play immediately, but he is about as close as you're going to see from a high school player. He has been playing offensive line his whole life. And he knows how to do it. He knows the pull scheme. He knows the pass sets. He knows just how to fire off the ball and beat the man across from him in run blocking. He kind of has the ability to do it all, and he has the experience to put those tools to use. Yeah, and Coach Borger said he's one of these guys he likes because he plays nasty. He said you watch him, and he's playing after the whistle blows. That's something that this Michigan coaching staff really values. You hear Brady Hoke talk about toughness, and his made-up word also physicalness. You get that in spades with Mason Cole, and that's the sort of guy that they want to build the front lines around, and you see that in the guys that they've recruited on both sides of the ball along the front line. Well, next on the offensive side is a wide receiver who's a local kid who doesn't maybe have the big 4- and 5-star ratings, but a lot of people locally really like this kid. Maurice Ways out of Country Day, 6'3", 192. One thing on him, Tim, didn't he play at Westland John Glenn last year though? No, he played at Country Day last year. It was like a couple other guys. It was his first year playing varsity football, so didn't get a whole lot of high-level pub before the season. By the end of the season, just about everybody knew who he was. Well, a couple of the camps that he's been to, he has really turned heads, though, hasn't he? Yeah, you mentioned that a lot of people locally really like Ways, despite a lack of star rating. You can definitely count me among those people. He has great physical tools. He reminds me a lot of what you saw out of Braylon Edwards. He has the physical tools coming out of high school. He just needs to add polish. And with Ways, who is one of those lifelong basketball players who hasn't played a whole lot of football in his life, it's just about learning and getting the experience. He has issues with concentration. Sometimes he'll drop a pass, but he also has the ability to go up and make the spectacular catch to make up for it. It's just a matter of adding the consistency to cut off the bottom end there and add a little bit more on the breadth of his skills in terms of wide receiver. Right now he's a lot of the time a designated fly route guy. He'll just run down the sidelines, and his quarterback, Rutgers commit Tyler Wiegers, will just check the ball up, and Maurice will make a big play for him. Adding a little bit more diversity to his skills, which is something that he's working on this offseason, will really help him. He's one of these guys that, again, hasn't had maybe the national acclaim as much as some of these other recruits. When you see him play locally, he's a guy like you that I really like and look forward to seeing develop over the next few years. Yeah, he's one of those guys. You just need to get him to play as a football player, not an athlete playing football, and he's working hard this offseason. He's not playing AAU basketball, which he did as a young guy, so he's really working on his game. Country Day has an indoor practice facility, so he's in there every day running routes with Tyler Wiegers and catching passes and improving himself. Well, in this class, we have one quarterback commit, which I find very interesting. Wilton Speight. Is that how you pronounce his last name? Speight. Okay. He's a 3-star kid, and sort of surprised me when
We got the verbal commit from him, but he's from Virginia, the collegiate school, Richmond, Virginia. 6'6", 217-pound quarterback, sort of an Elvis Gerbach kind of a build.
Yeah, he has the big height. He's kind of a broadly built guy, kind of what you'd expect out of a pro-style quarterback. It's a pretty distinct departure from some of the guys that we saw under the previous coaching staff. Obviously, Tate Forcier was like 6'1", 170 coming out of high school. We all know Denard Robinson, about 6 foot, probably about 180 coming out of high school, got up to about 200. But now you're seeing the big, tall, maybe not statuesque guys, because I think Spate led his team in rushing last year, actually. But they have the height, they have the mass. They're pro-style passers who are going to be able to stand in the pocket, see over the line, and maybe take a hit or two.
I haven't seen much tape on him, Tim, but has he got pretty good wheels? I mean, he can get out of the pocket and move around?
Yeah, like I said, he was one of his team's leading rushers last year. You can tell from watching the tape that he's not going to be Drew Henson out there or anything. He's not going to tuck the ball and run for 100 yards in a game probably ever during his Michigan career. But he can save some plays with his feet, avoid a rusher, and maybe gain 3 to 5 yards on a given play instead of taking a sack.
Was that a commit that surprised you?
By the time it came down, it seemed like it had been inevitable for probably a week, maybe 2 weeks. But if you had asked me 3 weeks before signing day, I would have said he was one of the guys who was a little further down the list. He worked out in front of the Michigan coaches a few days before signing day. He was in a group of probably 3 to 5 guys that they looked at really hard to make that first quarterback offer. It was clear that the first guy that they had offered was going to commit to Michigan, so he was the guy that they chose. They committed to Michigan, and he was obviously their first choice.
Do you see another quarterback commit in this class?
I really don't, and it seems like this Michigan coaching staff really wants to take one guy per year. It's for the way that their program is built. That's how they're going to be successful. If they can, make up for not taking one in the 2012 class by either Russell Bellamy getting healthy in time to play this season. Shane Morris probably won't redshirt. He'll probably have to contribute, but at that point, you'll be able to see a guy like Spate most likely redshirt as a true freshman and be ready to step in a couple years down the line, and they won't need him immediately. And so, one quarterback per class is probably going to be more than enough. If everybody redshirts and stays the entirety of their eligibility, that's 5 guys on the roster at a time. I think that's probably a pretty good balance for what they want.
Well, the last of our 11 commits is a wide receiver that I think everyone was very happy to see commit to Michigan and can't wait to see because we've seen him play locally and we know what a rare talent Drake Harris is. He's a 4-star right now. I'm sure he'll be bumped up to a 5-star pretty soon. But here's another dreamlike prototype receiver, 6'4", 180 pounds with skills that are just off the charts.
Yeah, this is a kid who set a state record. Pretty much blew it away. It was 2016 receiving yards during his junior year. I think he's the only kid in Michigan to ever even approach 2,000, much less pass it. Big, as you mentioned, very fast. He's a deep threat for his team, but he did it all. I mean, his Grand Rapids Christian team, I think the number one play in their offense was throw it to Drake. And they did it a lot, and they took him to a state title, so clearly it was working out for them. He's a kid that can just do it all, and like Wade, like Marshall, he hasn't been playing football for that long, so he was a lifelong basketball prospect. He was once committed to Michigan State to play basketball and football, decided to only play football and pick Michigan. So now that he's concentrating on football, no AAU this summer, he's working out with his football team. He should be able to be even better, if you can imagine, for a kid who caught 2,000 receiving yards as a junior, should be even better as a senior.
Yeah, it is hard to imagine, and I encourage folks to watch him on tape as much as you can online and see him this fall because he is an incredible athlete, and we're all going to, I think, enjoy him and the fact that we picked up Maurice Ways, 2 really pro-style receivers with speed that we can get on the field at the same time. The future looks great at the wideout.
Yeah, and they're not going to be done in this class either. They're going to probably look for a slot guy. Now, that doesn't mean the Rich Rodriguez slot guy who's a 5'8" guy who's a little jitterbug. They can get a guy who's bigger to play in the slot to join Ways and to join Harris out there, and that will really help complement those guys and open things up for them deep.
Well, Tim, we said there's not going to be, we don't know the exact number of slots for remaining scholarships, but there probably won't be that many more. Do you expect to see any more kids commit before the season starts, though?
You never know because oftentimes in recruiting it's more difficult to know when a kid will commit than which school he will commit to. There are a few kids who are planning summer decisions. You never know for sure if that will happen. You could see Bolingbrook, Illinois defensive back Parker Westfall, who's been very high on Michigan and would like to decide before his senior season. Maybe even a local product, Malik McDowell from Detroit Loyola. He's kind of been back and forth on whether he wants to make a decision before the season. Michigan time his list too. There are a few guys out there who could commit before the season. I wouldn't guarantee it on any individual kid, but I bet you see one, maybe even two more commit before the season.
Do you think Malik McDowell is leaning towards Michigan heavily?
Not necessarily heavily, but I do think he's a Michigan lean at this point. He doesn't really open up much about the recruiting process, kind of wants to leave reporters in the dark, but Michigan is his childhood favorite. His dad's a big Michigan fan as well. He's been to Michigan more than he's been to any other school. It's just a matter of seeing what else is out there in the world. He wants to take unofficial visits to the West Coast. He wants to take unofficial visits to the Southeast and see what that's all about. And when he does that, you never know. He might fall in love with an Alabama or LSU type of school, or he could come home and just say, you know what, staying 25 minutes away from my house isn't such a bad idea either, and I want to commit to Michigan. You could see him decide also that he wants to take official visits to further figure it out. So it's just a matter of for him, it's going through the process more so than it is determining if Michigan is a school that he'll really strongly consider, because he knows he's going to. He just wants to make sure he sees everything that there is to see.
Well, however it shakes down, right now with 11 commits, ESPN before the weekend, before Chase Winovich committed, I believe bumped the class up to number one for 2014, didn't they?
It might have even been before Jabril Peppers committed that ESPN moved Michigan's class to number one. So it's two more guys, including one of the top 5 players in the country on their rankings. It's not going to move down, that's for sure.
Well, no, and I know Michigan fans get real hung up on, hey, we're number one, can we stay number one? I mean, just given the fact that we don't have the numbers this year, even if it ends now, the quality of this class, and I'm sure some of the kids that we're yet to get, it really doesn't matter if we're at the top of the ESPN or the Rivals.com rankings. This class, from top to bottom, is loaded with quality and is exactly the kind of future player that Coach Brady Hoke wants.
Yeah, they won't get the sheer volume like you mentioned, but the average per player, even for some of the guys who are 3-stars like Bunting and even Lawrence Marshall, they can contribute, more than you might expect from your average 3-star player. So the quality at each individual spot in the class is probably better than the aggregate will make it look in the very end, because Michigan isn't going to have 28 commits like a lot of the other schools probably will, but they will have more quality per commit. But
we're in good shape. It's a great class. Tim Sullivan, recruiting editor from the Wolverine, has been our guest today. I mean, it's only June, but we're talking about the 2014 class already. Who knows what's going to happen in the coming weeks and months, but we'll certainly touch base with Tim, and I invite you to follow Tim in the Wolverine. We'll have a link up on our show notes page. Tim, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Thanks again to Tim Sullivan, who is the recruiting editor over at the Wolverine, for being our guest today. For subscription information, visit www.thewolverine.com. That's www.thewolverine.com. Coming up next, we close it out for another week on Wolverine Quick Hits, here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits today, the number 7 ranked University of Michigan softball team was upended by a 4-run 6th inning from the number 11 ranked Washington Huskies that started with a deflected ball off sophomore starting pitcher Sarah Driesinga and went on to drop the game 4-1 Sunday at the Women's College World Series held at the ASA Hall of Fame Stadium in Oklahoma City. The loss eliminated the Wolverines from the WCWS and ends their season with a 51-13 record. With 2 runners on in the 6th, an infield single by UW's Kimberly Souza ricocheted off Driesinga's leg and turned the tide of a game that Michigan was leading 1-0. Souza's scorcher bounced off Driesinga and went into no man's land in shallow left field. 1 run came around to score, followed by a second on a Michigan throwing error. The Huskies scored twice more on 2 more hits in the frame to take a 4-1 lead. Until that point, Driesinger had put together a stretch of 13 straight scoreless innings in the WCWS. The righty pitched her 7th complete game of the NCAA tournament and 3rd straight in the WCWS. She struck out 3, walked 2, and yielded 7 hits. She finished the season with a spectacular 31-9 record. Speed was a huge factor for Michigan's run in the 5th inning, with freshman Sierra Lawrence on 3rd following a steal of 2nd and a wild pitch. Senior Jacqueline Crummey pounded a pitch into the dirt and raced up the first base line. She beat the throw, and Lawrence scored for the first run of the game, the only one for Michigan. Crummey finished the game with 2 hits. Michigan could not come up with any more hits to equalize Washington's 6th inning. Sunday's game was the final one for seniors Crummey, Amy Knapp, Ashley Lane, and Stephanie Spearman. The quartet finished with an overall record of 195 wins, 74 losses, and was a part of 4 straight Big Ten championships, 3 regional titles, and 1 World Series appearance. The Michigan squad ends the year with a 51-13 record, a Big Ten championship, and the 10th WCWS appearance in program history, which ranks 7th among Division I programs. So congratulations to Coach Carol Hutchins and the Wolverines. They are a very young team, and the future looks very bright. The University of Michigan will host Ohio State on Friday, November 29th at Yost Ice Arena in its opening game of the 2013-14 Big Ten Conference hockey season. The dates and opponents for the complete 60-game schedule for the inaugural season of Big Ten men's hockey were announced last week by the Big Ten office. Michigan's November 29th game versus Ohio State will be a part of the conference's opening night doubleheader, as Minnesota will host Wisconsin in Minneapolis the same night. The Wolverines and Buckeyes will conclude their 2-game series at Value City Arena on Monday, December 2nd. Michigan does not return to Big Ten action until it travels to Wisconsin for a weekend series on Friday and Saturday, January 9th and 10th. The Wolverines had been a member of the Central Collegiate Hockey Association, the CCHA, since the 1981-82 season, winning 11 regular season titles and 9 postseason championships. With the realignment in college hockey, the CCHA ceased operation after this past season. Game times and the remainder of Michigan's 2013-14 hockey schedule will be announced at a later date. The inaugural Big Ten men's hockey tournament will be held March 20th through the 22nd at Xcel Energy Center in Minneapolis. The tournament will feature all 6 teams in a single elimination format, so a lot to look forward with Big Ten hockey this winter. Wherever you go this summer, it's easy to keep up with all of your Wolverine news. Just visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for membership today. Yes, it's only June, but we're already looking ahead to the fast-approaching football season here at GBM Wolverine. From player profiles to recruiting news to the give and take on our message board, there is no off-season at GBM Wolverine. So check us out and become a member today at www.gbmwolverine.com. Thanks again to Tim Sullivan, recruiting editor at The Wolverine, for being our guest today. You can subscribe to The Wolverine or get more information by visiting www.thewolverine.com. That's www.thewolverine.com. I invite you to check out our Android app at amazon.com, and if you're an Apple person, you can find our app in the iTunes App Store. Our phone lines are open 24/7 for your comments and suggestions. Give us a ring at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. If you have something to say, just give us a call, tell us who you are and where you're calling from, and then say your piece. You can also email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. I will have both the phone number and the email address on my show notes page. So we look forward to hearing from you. Give us a ring. We'll be back with our next show on Wednesday, June 19th. So we hope you'll take the time to download the show and take us with you on your summer travels. Until then, I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, and as always, go blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!